There are many dates in a lifetime that you're going to remember. The date your children are born, the date you're married, the date you buy a first house, the date Abby and Libby went missing. One of those dates was last Friday, October 28th, 2022. At that time, we had gathered evidence, and the judge did find probable cause for an arrest of Richard Allen.
This investigation is far from complete.
As Mr. Allen is now without counsel, I've ordered him transported back to the Department of Correction. Obviously, without counsel, Mr. Allen's hearing cannot proceed.
What's your reaction to the fact that his counsel withdrew and he wasn't even in court today?
Very disappointed. It doesn't seem to be much of a surprise.
Welcome back to Closing Arguments. We have new documents in the case against Richard Allen. He's accused of murdering two young girls, Abigail Williams and Liberty German, back in February of 2017. And since then, this case has been anything but typical. The defense claims their client did not commit these heinous crimes and murders. They say that the murders were part of a ritualistic killing. Allen's defense points the finger at an Odinist cult, and they've hinted that members of the prison system and the law enforcement there in the area, that they're actively involved in the conspiracy. These are all allegations. And today, those accusations continue. The defense filed new documents now alleging that there are two interviews that are crucial to the case of key witnesses that they say were recorded by law enforcement and then taped over by law enforcement. So they've been deleted. The interviews were with a father of a boy that Abby Williams, one of the victims, was dating at the time, and another was a man who was a friend of that man, who the defense claims, along with the boy's father, are both known Odinists. Prosecution turned over discovery to the defense, including a letter cataloging the evidence that the prosecutor was turning over, and it revealed that the boyfriend's father's missing videotaped interview and the second man's missing interview, if one existed, were due to a DVR problem error discovered on September 20th, 2017. All recordings up to February 20th, 2017 were recorded over. And the defense argues this is especially negligent as those interviews took place 3 days after the murders, this long unsolved murder case. Still with me to talk about all this, Daryl Cohen, Molly Parmer, Meg Strickler. This gets weirder and weirder the more things that we hear from the defense. Is this just zealous representation, or are you starting to believe some of the things that they are alleging?
I believe very little of what they're alleging, but let's take a look at this for a moment. When our defendant was first arrested, he was big, and now he's little. He's now emaciated. I think that plays into the defense theory, whether they realize it or not, as the jury looks at him and they're going to say, I hear the evidence, because nobody actually saw anyone do it. It's circumstantial, which means nobody saw it, but it happened. And so they're going to look at him and say, could he have really done it? And I think the prosecution needs to just paste pictures of him when he was arrested so that the jury doesn't look at him as a little old person who just couldn't do it.
I mean, prosecutors do that.
The physicality is not the issue. I believe this. I mean, here's the thing. Those of us that love what we do, that love criminal trial work, it's because the truth is stranger than fiction. These kind of things come out in criminal trials all the time. And as wild as this initially sounded, we all, when we first were covering this case, thought, Odinist? What is an Odinist? Mm-hmm. And then we found out that correctional officers that were in charge of him in the jail were Odinists. And now we find out that two very serious, very important interviews that police conducted were mysteriously recorded over. And these were Odinists? At what point do we say, this is too much? It's the same thing as like the circumstantial evidence that we talk about. At some point you put it all together and you say something is here. I think he's innocent. I think it's an Odinist cult murder, and I think it's wild.
And what I was thinking about with evidence, when you're talking about this, the circumstantial evidence, I think about it with like a brick wall, and you're just putting brick upon brick upon brick on cross-examination, that you pull out all of these facts, and it's in closing argument, you put it all on a PowerPoint or whatever you want, all of these bricks, and say, here, jury, it's not my burden to prove anything, but just take this back when you deliberate and say, have we proved reasonable doubt? And there are a lot of bricks, and they keep coming.
And it's not just a Saudi defense. They're not just saying someone else out there, you find it, prosecutor and police did it. They're saying we have a pretty good idea of what this all was. And I want to ask you specifically about these interview recordings, because this murders that happened in this area, this had to have been one of the biggest cases that they'd ever dealt with. So the idea that just 6 days after these interviews would have been taped over or lost or destroyed, that's the allegation here, is that the prosecution destroyed it. Does that raise any more red flags if there's an argument that, oh, it was an accident?
Doesn't bother me. Why doesn't it bother me? Because the people that were interviewed were available. If they were dead, then it would bother me. If they're available to be re-interviewed, even though their memory may not be as good as it once was.
Well, let me add something to your point, Daryl, because in that defense filing that's described as a known contradiction is that the father of Abby's boyfriend, that at one point he told law enforcement back in 2017, so this might be in the written portion of that interview, that he never met Abby Williams, and she was reportedly dating his son at the time. Then when he was re-interviewed after all of this unfolded in 2023 with the arrest of Richard Allen and all this attention on the case, he told law enforcement after he was interviewed for about 39 minutes that he barely even knew that girl. I met her once. So what the defense is saying is that there's this one material and highly relevant contradiction that exists, and therefore it's plausible that there are many other contradictions that they would have if the defense had that information, but because of their accusations that the state was negligent in not preserving that evidence. So does that change your position?
The word is no, and it's spelled N-O, not K-N-O-W.
Molly.
I mean, what more do we need to say? This is incredibly suspicious. If the state is not transparent, that should be the first red flag. And then when you have this blatant inconsistency about whether he even knows the girl, and at first he's denying having ever met her, that's another red flag. And then now he's an Odinist, that's another red flag. I mean, at some point, we can't just blindly look to authority and assume that the state is always going to be doing the right thing. Corruption happens. This is an example, I think,
Can I
of
be
that.
devil's advocate, just for fun?
Please.
There are many, 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 many cases that I'm sure all three of us have had, and you hear on court TV, where things are lost, deleted, audio problems, technological issues. It's a very normal kind of happenstance. In
all the interviews?
Yes.
All the interviews?
I'm just being devil's advocate just to kind of spice things up here. So you could argue, since they are still available, and that inconsistent statement that he made is not that inconsistent. You know, this is a 14-year-old girl. I have a 15-year-old girl. I don't know what's going on in her life with respect to everything, because you're dating at that level is not that big of a boyfriend-girlfriend kind of thing yet. Now, 17, 18, 19, 20, as they get older, it's a bigger thing. He's laughing because he's got that age.
Could this father have tried to distance himself then if he knew his son was dating her?
I'm just trying to argue devil's advocate that these things happen and it's not enough to be problematic, because they can still give commentary of what they know in 2023. I barely met her. That's like, you know, not a stringent, inconsistent statement.
Doesn't bother me because nothing is absolute. That's why it's guilty, if found guilty, beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt.
And
There's going to be doubt.
to you or no?
It doesn't scream that to me at all. I see mistakes, whether it's intentional or not, that's a whole different situation. But even if it is, people were still available. And the fact that he may have known this girl, he may not have known her, that doesn't bother me. That really is minute.
I mean, this trial is going to be unbelievable. Just wait. I mean, I think the defense has only shown us a small piece of their theory, right? We know which direction they're headed, but what's actually going to come out and the way that they're going to bring it out, I think is going to be completely fascinating. And jurors, you know, jurors these days are more skeptical than they've been in the past. They come in there and they do, you know, have expectations of the state, of the government, and they are looking towards law enforcement and wondering if they're doing the job that they should be doing. This case is perfect for that kind of audience, and this trial is going to be absolutely wild.
Yeah,
And they'll teach you the art of cross-examination, too.
Absolutely.
SVU,
You know
Special Victims Unit.
You know that these attorneys are going to be all over that cross-examination. That's all the time we have for on this case.